Welcome to the Southern Ohio Synod podcast. I am Pastor Tim Menser, and I serve as assistant to the bishop for discipleship, leadership, and engagement. This means I work with congregational leaders to better equip them for their roles in their churches, and I am preparing people of the Synod to tell the story of Jesus. I am so glad you have joined us for our episode today.
Well, hello. My name is Gary Pecuch. I'm working on the bishop's staff, youth and family ministry, and we have gathered around our table today some veteran youth directors here to ask them some questions about what youth ministry is like today.
I'm Allie Adams. I have been in ministry for about 22 years. I am currently at Epiphany Lutheran Church in Pickerington. I've been serving there for 18 years. My title is Director of Children, Youth, and Family Ministries. So I work with kids from birth through 12th grade, plus I do intergenerational events and some all-congregation events. I also serve as the Region 6 ELCA Youth Ministry Rep.
Hi everyone, I'm Greta Clouse. I am the children's ministry leader at Peace Lutheran Church in Gahanna, and luckily it is a full-time position at the church, and so my focus is working with families, with kiddos from kind of birth through 5th grade, although I overlap quite a bit with our student ministry leader. But some of the things that I get to focus on is working obviously with those kiddos, but also like nursery, our Praise and Learn Sunday School program, classes like First Communion or Bible reading class, as well as our big family events and some intergenerational stuff too, like Allie said, with congregational events and of course Vacation Bible School in the summer. And I have been at Peace as a member for 22 years, but in this role for 13, almost 14 years.
And my name is Amelia Shrum, and I get to be the student ministry leader at Peace in Gahanna along with Greta. I have been in paid youth ministry for 17 years now, but I've been at Peace for a little over 4 years. I primarily work with 6th through 12th graders, but we do get to overlap, like Greta said there. But I get to do things like youth group, confirmation, retreats, and summer trips. And I also attempt some touch points with our post-hire young adult students.
And my name is Greg Osborne. I am the student pastor at St. Luke Lutheran Church in Gahanna, Ohio. In May, I'll be starting my 20th year at the church. I work with students in grades 6th through 12th grade, alongside with our full-time children's pastor as well. And I do everything from catechism to summer trips to youth group Sunday school to running the live stream, running the podcast at the church, and anything with technology is my wheelhouse outside of my job description.
Let's start with what is children's, youth, and or family ministries like today?
I thought of two things that came to mind. One, I have a group of student ministry leadership team, a group of adults that just care about students. And so we kind of meet bi-monthly, to talk through things and plan. And I am just so thankful for them. It kind of a variety of gifts and abilities around the table means that I hope that then we can better reach more students. So that's kind of one thing that is really, really valuable to me. And then actually, Allie said something at a cluster meeting. It was probably a year ago now, but you said this thing where it's like, we're here when students can come. And so we have this revolving door of if it's swim season, maybe I won't see you for a season, but know that I'm going to be here again the next season. And so this is our calendar. We're here. Come when you can, leave when you have to.
A few of the things that I was thinking about with this question is that during our First Communion classes, by the end of the class, we always want the kids to realize 3 things when they come to God's table for communion for the first time. And it's that they are loved, they are accepted, and they are forgiven. And we say that phrase over and over again. And I think it has really become my own personal philosophy of working with kids at Peace, of that at the end of the day, I want these young kids to know that they are wholly loved, that they are a beloved child of God, that they are accepted for exactly who they are and who God has meant them to be, and they don't need to change anything about that, and that they are forgiven. And so the things that I kind of focus on with like our Praise and Learn, our Sunday school time, a model that I think has worked better because it has really changed over the last few years, is that before, kids would be there every single Sunday, right? Or you would hope that they're there every single Sunday, but that's not the reality anymore of our very busy families. And so instead of, focusing on, okay, we're going to do Moses for the whole month of, whatever, February, but the reality is the kids are there one Sunday out of that month. And so the curriculum that we have used has focused more on one kind of character idea for the month. And then every week, those Bible stories and the lesson go in with that character trait. And that has really worked well for us at our church for the last few years. I think especially since COVID, that we've kind of moved to that model, and it has seemed to really help kind of focus things in, knowing that you're not sure what your attendance is going to be that day, if you're going to get 10 kids or 75 kids. And so that kind of model I feel like has really helped us in children's ministry.
For us, our ministry is very much, we have leaned hard into everybody is welcome. We want you to know that you are loved by God, you are loved by Jesus, you are loved by the community here. And we look at each event, even if it is a recurring or a weekly event or a monthly event, we don't really try and do a series that builds on each other, that each event is, I look at it as a one-off event. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily say that to everyone, but that we don't know who's going to show up week to week, and there often isn't carryover of kids from week to week, but they know that they're going to be welcome when they come. They're going to hear that God loves them, that Jesus loves them, that our community loves them, and then that they have the power to share that love. Yeah. So those are kind of the things that we focus on and lean into as we do things, and that we're going to do faith together. They don't have to do it on their own. We get to do it as a community together, and wherever they are, they can find a community to do faith.
I think that's the concept that we've found at St. Luke a lot more often is students and kids are so overwhelmed and so busy in the context that they're in, that we shifted from our model of more of a, if you build it, they will come model to more of a, let's go to where they are, whether it's in the church or where they are. So like finding places for our students to, we're getting more students involved in kids ministry, so they might not be necessarily at a high school or middle school Bible study, but they're teaching these young kids about their faith, or maybe they're serving in the tech room on the soundboard. And so we're trying to structure more of our ministry of how can we come alongside with those liked interests that they already are showing with adults that are believers that are already trusted in place, and how can we kind of go alongside with those adults and create little pockets of groups where they have people that they get along with and they have the same likeness of, right? Like they like to serve in kids ministry, or they like to do greeting at the door, whatever it is, or, working on the live stream stuff. Like, so we've kind of shifted of, hey, come to all the kids and student ministry stuff, more student ministry than kids. And like, where can we go to what interests you, and how can we build off of that?
How have young people changed, or how have families changed? Has the church changed? Has the culture changed?
Well, I think that's where it spawned for us of where we had to get to do ministry because of coming out of COVID in 2020. Ministry, the way we do ministry changed a lot. Like a lot of these kids, now that we're seeing in middle school, high school in our church, went through a pandemic and went through not interacting with kids, not growing up as, in the church every single Sunday doing stuff. And so we've had this shift, and we're seeing that there's a lot more of providing more family events for people, because for so many years, a lot of these young people, their core crew was their family. It was their immediate circle. So it's hard for them sometimes to break outside of that immediate circle we've found in our context, because they don't know anything different. They were told, this is your bubble. These are your people that you stay with all the time, and that's all you can do stuff with. And so it kind of got built into the culture of our young people.
I read a quote a few weeks ago in an article that I pulled out for this podcast today, and it said, kids are curious, creative, and growing up faster than ever in a world that rarely slows down to listen, right? So the reality is that our kids are growing up in this super digital and really divided world right now, and so I think that has just kind of forced us to have to change and think about how we can best help and support our families, right? Because they are dealing with way more mental health things than ever before, and just all of those things, and real struggles as a family. And so how can you help them build this faith foundation for their kids so that when they, happen to experience all of those things individually or at school or in life together as a family, how can you just kind of help support that foundation, and really meeting them where they're at that moment.
We were kind of joking, we met kind of as the youth leaders and meet and greet with the bishop right before this, and kind of like in the table cluster that we were kind of like, what has been decreasing lately? Allergies. Like those medical forms are not as much peanut allergy in this. It's like, I'm on this anxiety med, I have this, this depression, I can't sleep without X, Y, and Z, and I'm seeing that pendulum swing of going, these are some, these are some serious issues.
Amelia had mentioned it a little bit ago, but I know at Epiphany we have definitely seen that what we can really offer is consistency. If we can set our calendar ahead of time, or if we can say our events are going to be every week at this time, or every month on the first Sunday for these times, no matter what, during the school year, that really helps. And that there's not a push or any shaming about, hey, you're not here for this. It's just, we are going to be there and we hope you can join us. We want you to be there. We hope you can join us and the others that are there to be part of that excitement with us. And that's a big shift that we have seen, and just that families are kind of, when they go to fill out their calendars, it's kind of like looking at a Cheesecake Factory menu, that there are pages upon pages upon pages of options, and we are just one of them. So, that we are consistent in what we are able to offer them, so that when they do have a gap in a practice time or a season of a sport or another activity ends, they can still plug in and they haven't missed anything. There's still offerings there for them no matter what. And that we may not be the top choice all the time.
But we should be the cheesecake of the Cheesecake Factory, right? Like, we should be the page that they turn to.
We should be the Adams fudge ripple, peanut butter cup fudge ripple, right? Instead of just the plain cheesecake.
What a good illustration that we're still the consistency, though, and that we can still be that foundation no matter what.
And that we are still on the menu. We're not obsolete. We're still on the menu. It just may not be the thing that's picked every time.
And I liked what Greg said too about going where they are. Like, I love seeing them in their choir concerts, band concerts, basketball court, seeing them there. Like, I still think that means a lot.
Well, and I think it does mean a lot. When we talked about this, right before us, again, students that don't necessarily show up to all the events at our church, but then still want me to do their weddings, want me to show up in their places because I showed up to their middle school basketball games. I showed up to here. And even if they didn't show up all the time at church, they're like, well, he was at my events and he went to my ballet concerts or my recitals, that he's my youth pastor. I think that's another key aspect of showing up, because that's the church is not just our building. It's everywhere where they're at too. And they see it then.
But Amelia is so awesome with that, of asking parents and kids for their schedules and then showing up to it. She just went to my kid's holiday band concert last night or 2 nights ago now, I guess, huh? And there's 3 kids, 2 of mine and another one that, are all in youth group together and in ministry together at Peace. And that takes time, right? Not only, I think, at least a 40-minute drive for you to get there, on a Tuesday night, taking time away from your own family, but being out in their world and showing up for them, it makes a huge difference to them. And so the more times that, I think for all of us, it has just shifted to that more and more, right? Of making, for me, it's a lot of making the meal and taking it to their house, when they have a sickness or someone's in the hospital or they just had a baby or they're just having a rough time, or it's way outside of the walls of the church, for sure.
I try to think in terms of touch points, like when can I interact with that person kind of positively on a regular basis so that I can at least check in.
And going to the events, I was at a concert earlier this week too, and just, I was there because my own child was in it, but then here are all these other kids who are a part of the ministry, and not only do I get to see them, I get to see their parents and their grandparents and their siblings and have those incidental conversations that are just, gosh, it's a crazy season, but look, here we are, and we're doing it together. And that I have kind of said all year long to my volunteers in ministry, when we show up and love big, it makes a huge difference. And there's nothing that replaces that. So when we show up and we love big, it can sometimes do bigger things than even a piece of programming does.
And I think that hopefully is life-giving for our youth and our families, and it's also life-giving to me, right?
Yes.
To us as leaders, to see them out doing what they really love is just life-giving, I hope, on both sides.
They don't necessarily remember. I don't remember what my youth pastor in high school preached on, but I remember they showed up to my wrestling matches or to my football games. And I think that's what's a key reminder. Sometimes we get so bogged down as leaders of like, when kids don't show up to our stuff, of like, okay, well, can we show up to their things and make those memories? And I think we see that with the gang concerts that you're all talking about and stuff like that.
What do you wish you knew before you started in children's, youth, and family ministry? Or did you have any training, or what prepared you for your current position?
So I was a teacher before this, and now have been in ministry in kind of this capacity for 13 plus years. And I'm learning and growing and changing too, myself, and with just like, there are only so many hours in the day and in your week, right? And kind of creating boundaries, because this job is it can become like a 24/7 thing, right? And so trying to do that. And so I think that I'm trying to learn to not stress too much about the little things, right? That what we already talked about, the kids will remember that you showed up. The kids will remember the experience that they had, right? That experience of putting on that Mary costume and standing outside in a live nativity in a stable. Like, that kid will remember that, and not that the donkey canceled at the last second. I'm only saying this because it just happened last Sunday. This is fresh. Jethro had to cancel. I know, Jethro canceled. Okay, well, let's be honest. He did not call me personally. His trainer did. He had COVID. And so, darn, COVID still affecting me. And so Jethro canceled, and I was freaking out about it. And I was like, okay, Greta, simmer down here. Because at the end of the day, like, those kids still get to be a part of this live nativity experience. No one coming to it even knows that there's going to be a donkey. So, like, calm down about this, So trying to kind of not focus so much on that, right? About the little stuff. And I hope we get Jethro next year,
I remember one Saturday night, it was like a decade ago, but I was checking my email for the umpteenth time, getting ready for church the next day. So it's just like, maybe somebody emailed me, and my husband said, why do you always check your email? You don't need to do that. I was like, just one more thing, just real quick. And then the next day at church, somebody said to me, you never check your email. And it was like, and it instantly got me going, what? In my head, and it was like, actually, that's not their fault. That's my fault. I need to set that boundary, because I need to take care of my house, and not have my husband upset at me, because they're always going to be upset about something. Everybody outside is always going to be upset about something. So I wish the boundaries one is a good one. That was a good wake up of, yeah, I need a better boundary here. And I wish I knew that before I had to get mad and my husband had to get mad. So it'd be cool to rewind. And then another story that happened recently is somebody asked me, and one of my adult leaders was kind of standing there, about how many they thought we would have in youth group. And I kind of was, like thinking, and then my adult leader spoke up real quick and said, about 2 to 30, and I was like, thank you. Yes, you get it. And so just kind of something that I'm glad I know now, and I need to continue to remember, is whether it's 2 or 30, to just be faithful with who comes and who shows up.
In that same vein, I wish I would have known that you never know who you're prepping for. A lot of times you may know, in other professions, you may know, I know there are 10 people coming to this event, so I need to prepare 10 copies or whatever, and you don't. It's 2 to 30, or sometimes it's 2 to 75. You are prepping for an unknown, and I laugh before big events. My prayer is always, God, give me what I need. It's never what I think I want or should have for an event, but I just say, God, give me what I need. And it always turns out better than I could ever expect. But that there's a lot of my own faith that gets exercised in what I do.
Yeah, boundaries is like I went to youth ministry. I have a degree in youth ministry, and they didn't talk about that enough. Of like when you say no to a yes to something, you're saying no to something else, and it's like how true that is. And so my advice to someone new is when they offer you a work email, take that work email and then don't put it on your phone when you're traveling. Because like there was moments where I had a big blow up, and it was like I was out of vacation the rest of the time because I didn't have that boundary in place. So, but I think the biggest thing I would say to someone new in youth ministry is not to let is that parents aren't the enemies. I think coming out of young into youth ministry 20 years ago, I was like, I know it all. I'm smarter than you, parents. And for the most part, that they just want what's best for their kid. Now they might not know what's best for their kids sometimes. And so like, how can we as a church and ministry come alongside them and support them? I think my focus has shifted, and this was before kids. And now that I do have kids, like, holy cow, like how much more, like how can we as a church come alongside and support parents who are just trying to get through it too and raise their kids the best way they can? And like, so focus my ministry on how can we as a student ministry be the best use of help for parents and what they're doing trying to raise their kids too.
Absolutely. And just that whole concept of there may be a kid in your ministry, but you're not just ministering to them, because you are also ministering to their parent or their guardian or whatever adult got them there. So children, youth, and family ministry is always done in layers, because there's always someone connected to that child or that student, and you are doing as much, if not more, for them than you are for the student that's present in the event that's happening. And just, how do you build into that and provide resources for them and be open to them to have those conversations and be a part of their faith too.
And I think it's just as much showing up for the students we talked about earlier as showing up for the parents. I remember at one point I had a parent's like, yeah, you just need to encourage parents more, Greg. And I was like, okay. And I sent out my weekly email and I just put in prayer and like, hey, I know school's starting. I know there's a lot of stresses. I'm praying for you. I got like 6 responses back from my email chain. I never get responses back. And they were all just like, thank you. I needed that. Like, thank you. And it was a great reminder of how much it is. We're, like I said, we're ministering to the kids, and the students, but also to the guardians, to the parents, to the grandparents who are there. We're all just trying to do our best.
Let's continue the focus on you. What is life-giving and what is life-zapping?
One thing that when I was thinking about this question, gosh, just the people in our community, it is so life-giving. The people that are in our community at Peace are just some of the most incredible people that I have met. And so it's just life-giving for me to just meet these incredible families, right? And these volunteers, and from the young to the old, it is so life-giving. And the relationships and the friendships that I've gotten to form in this job and at that place are just, really incredible, really incredible. And it's been really, I think, life-giving for the rest of my family too. My 2 boys are 15 and 16 now, and I've been in this role for about 13, and so they've literally grown up there. And so, they always say, oh, well, that's my Peace grandma, or that's my Peace mom, or that's my Peace, and just so those relationships that we've gotten to form, it's just super life-giving. And then just the volunteers is kind of this other piece that I was thinking about. There's so many people that just continue to step up in so many really tiny and really big ways. And to watch that and to be a part of that is really life-giving, and to see people connecting with each other that you had a hand in, of, oh, you need to meet so-and-so. And then to watch that connection happen and to see God there in the midst of all of that it's really life-giving for me.
I love great conversations. So even if they're, I'm thinking back on on Saturday or Sunday night, we had an event, and a sixth grade boy, just mom was like, "Hey, can he help out?" It's like, "Sure, I'll be at the fire pit all night. He can stand with me." And even him just sharing random facts about how hot dogs were made, and do you know what's in gelatin? Sixth grade parents.
Please tell us, Amelia. The podcast is taking a change now.
It was an hour and a half event. So how much do we have? No, but it was just, even those little, like, just conversation of, like, you're taking time out of your day to have this conversation with me, and I'm just honored to talk about hot dogs with you. But, or it's those big conversations and seeing how those connections are being made. And our confirmation program, we ask a caring adult to come with each of their students. And so at last month, I said, look at this list of gifts and talents, and kind of pick 2 or 3 that you have, and kind of circle them. Just kind of, we were thinking about stewardship and what talents you have. And then I flipped it and said, and think about 2 or 3 that the person you came with, like, also has. And so it was just, there was this one grandma who came with two of her grandsons, and just watching them talk about, and brother, I think you're really good at public speaking, and Mima, you're really kind, and it was just, it was so cool that they were able to take that time, out of their busy schedules, whether it's talking about hot dogs or talking to each other about spiritual gifts. It's just cool to either be a part of it or watch the conversations happen. I love that kind of stuff.
The relationships are such a life-giving piece, whether it's getting to know a little kid and, them saying, can you save me all of the copies that don't get used, because I like cutting things out. So they cut out all the things from all the extras. But, and it's cool because, you're training volunteers and you're trying to get folks to help serve so that you have enough adults. So it's just kind of get to see this really awesome cross-section of the entire community that comes together to make stuff happen. And just getting to watch those things happen and then help connect folks with each other is just really, really awesome.
Yeah, I think the community is one of the aspects that keeps a lot of us going sometimes, because of the relationships. And, when I started at St. Luke, I was single, and then to watch, people in my church watch as I had, got married, had kids, and then them come alongside them and helping raise them and grow them. And that's a life-giving aspect. And then in the leadership aspects of, I've been blessed at St. Luke to work with some pastors that I think near and dear to my heart, of, like, their training, their leadership that has helped guide. So, like, and to have those kind of, like, there's some life-giving moments of, like, where people who get ministry, who then are your superiors sometimes, where that can be life-giving to me, of where it's like, hey, I see you, I know what you're going through, and I'm here for you. So, like, that's been one of those sustainer for me, of when the other side of that question comes up, it's like, oh, they're there to support. So
Yeah, and you saying that reminded me too. Another life-giving aspect for me is just the staff that we get to work with, right? Like, our peace staff is just awesome, and each person brings such a different gift and talent around that table. And they're all so hardworking, and they just love God and love others and really want the best for the church and for this world and the community. And so to watch that is really life-giving, and to be a part of a staff like that. And I want to mention one other piece, and I don't know, Gary, if this answer will come up in one of your other questions, but I do want to mention that several years ago, Peace Lutheran made a commitment for family ministry to have 2 full-time people. And so I get to be full-time, and Amelia gets to be full-time. And there are so many churches that are not in that boat. They have one very part-time person trying to do it all, or maybe 2 part-time people, right? Varying from 5 hours a week to 20 hours a week. And for our church to be able to make that commitment of not just financially, but recognizing the importance of that has been a game changer, I think, too, that we both get to do this in a full-time capacity. I think that
And I
makes a
tell
difference.
all of I get to do the baptism workshops, so I get to hang out with the little babies too, which is so cool, and their parents. But I say that every time. It's like, and so we as a church promise to help you. We make those promises at baptism to help you raise your little one in the faith. And I always say, which is why me and Miss Greta have a job, because kind of joking with the parents, but and on more than one occasion, they're like, and that's why we're here. We're so glad, that you guys are here. But I kind of add this, so don't be a stranger, when that goldfish dies, or when that, like, you have us in your corner that we might not know the answers, but we can help you.
But by us being full time, it creates an opportunity for this job to be more life-giving than life-sapping,
I also like seeing students encourage each other. I got to say that too. It's so fun to see, especially like our older high schoolers will come alongside our younger middle schoolers and cheer them on or teach them the ropes or do something leadership. It's just cool.
Seeing the older ones step up to lead because they've had that experience and they want to see someone else have that experience or have as much fun as they did. They make that happen.
I think about our vacation Bible school program. So once they've completed 6th grade, they can volunteer. And it just always cracks me up the week of VBS to see all these like high schoolers and middle schoolers just dancing the dances and singing the songs and being totally goofy with all the younger kids. And if you were to ever take that VBS piece out, that kid would never dance and sing and be forgotten like that, never. But somehow in that space at that time with these younger ones, they are into it, and these little kids just look up to them like, oh, it is just amazing. It is so life-giving to watch that.
Life zapping. I have one. Life zapping. I did like jot down one that, when you have the times of there's 2 coming, that, or even just on a slower season, or when something didn't quite go your way, I go home at night and go, okay, what could have been better? What would I do differently next time? And there's always sometimes those creeping in of, am I doing enough? Am I energetic enough? Am I smart enough? Am I too old? Am I, and kind of all of those, that's life zapping. And I know that, but it still happens of like, man, only 2 came tonight. Should I be doing something different? Are they all that kind of stuff?
The doubt sometimes creeps in, or the are you good enough? Are you, the big joke in our household, on our first date, my wife said to me, she said, so you're a youth pastor, that must be fun all the time. And I chuckled, and then she, about, I think, a year into being married to me, she goes, remember when I said it? I said, yep. She goes, I did not know what I was talking about. Like just getting to see the ins and the outs, because we are working with people, and we work with people who have real hurts, that, we're not perfect people and we make mistakes. And when we're dealing with people and their kids, and that's so important to us, like we want the best for our kids. And so if a parent thinks we aren't providing the best for their kids, then that can be draining for us, of like, oh my goodness, like I dropped the ball here, and this family now that I've known forever doesn't like me because I did A, B, or C, and I could have done other stuff. That's when the doubt creeps in, and you're like, that's where the zapping comes in for me, of like alongside the boundary aspect of like, because we don't have a token clock in at 8 a.m. or done by 4 o'clock, that it's like, oh, am I doing enough? Oh, I can always do enough. I can check more my email on Saturday. I can do this because there isn't this. And if there's only 2 kids, that means I need to be doing more here or there. And yeah.
And there's no start and stop, right? Because even though the event's over, like, don't you feel great? Yeah, but should I do this differently for next summer? Like I'm just already there and going.
Yeah, one thing I thought about was just, for me, it's zapping to just, I constantly feel the pressure to keep it fun and fresh and relevant and engaging and, right? While still keeping it spiritually deep and still, creating these things or lesson planning in a way that, is meaningful and engaging, but also represents our ELCA values, and rewriting this curriculum or coming up with this, or so just kind of that constant pressure of Or I will be honest, I'll like hear of another church doing something and then I'm like, oh, should we be doing that? Should I have thought of that? Should I be doing that? And so like just that constant kind of hamster wheel in my brain can be really life-sapping.
Well, I love that we can offer ministry for 2 kids or 30 kids. It's also that, you kind of prep for somewhere in the middle. So if you prep for 15, but then 18 show up, then it's this swerve or the last minute, hey, I know you leave in 5 minutes, but can my kids still go? And there's all this background of, well, I need the paperwork, but I need to make sure there's a seatbelt in there. And it's a lot of kind of backstage stuff that no one ever sees. But that is the stuff that can be life-sapping because you're trying to keep everything, do the checklist of all the child safety and all of the needed things, but also be ready for when the Spirit moves and when that kid needs to experience God's love and that family needs the opportunity to plug in. And the swerving can get exhausting. It's life-giving and life-sapping both.
Last question. Why children's, youth, family ministry? Talk about your dream, your path, your discernment process that got you to your role in the church, and anything else you want to add before we close. But you haven't had a chance to mention yet.
I started out as a meteorology major, and even going into college, I knew that math was not going to be where I wanted to spend my whole life. Even though I really wanted to chase tornadoes, and do that meteorology stuff, the math behind it wasn't going to be possible. So lots of time just shifting. I shifted my major 7 times while I was in college, but the thing kept coming up to me was church and the activities that I got to be involved in with church on so many different levels. Music and service events and being with friends and learning and growing in faith with multiple ages. And I loved hanging out with younger kids even when I was a teenager. That was always a constant, and it was something that always filled my cup. So as I tried to discern what I wanted to do for my life, it's like this has been a constant for my whole life. And I hope that another kid can have at least some of the same experiences that I've had and feel filled with that. So that was kind of the long road of how I got to where I was. I didn't think I would be here for forever, but it is. I mean, it is something that I'm passionate about, because knowing that God loves me no matter what happens in my life around me, no matter if I have made a poor decision, no matter if something bad has happened, that I'm still loved by God. That has helped to carry me through. And I want kids and their families to know that too.
For me, it was people like that are in the room here that in high school for me that invested in me and, gave me opportunities to serve in. We had an All Stars for Jesus program at our church growing up, and getting to be a high school student doing children's sermons in front of the church and VBS and kids ministry started to plant the seeds of like, I could do this, and had pastors and leaders say, hey, have you thought about this? And then completely ignoring all of those pastors and leaders and going to school for animation is what I wanted, because I wanted to work for Disney and Pixar and do stuff like that. And I took a art class my first semester and absolutely despised it. I hated it. The professor basically was just like, oh, that drawing's beautiful, and it was like a finger painting drawing, and I was like, I can't do the emotion of the drawings and feelings and things like that. I was like, it's not for me. So I was like, well, what's my next option? And it was working in the church. But because it was those seeds that were planted early on that then crept in, that I was able to switch my major very early, then my first year into going into youth ministry. And from then on, that was what I was called to do, because like seeing being able to look back and see the steps that were placed before me when I was growing up of those rules. So I think like the encouragement is like for us sometimes like we are like, oh man, this kid would be great for ministry, and then they're going to do physical therapy or something like there's not the end of the world because they might switch it up here at the end, but and then I mean just I think the staying in the ministry aspect for me I mentioned earlier is to I had leaders that have invested in me and cared for me, and you know that there were times where people were probably like, oh, we shouldn't have Greg as our youth pastor anymore, but they knew what it took to be in youth ministry, and they fought and cared and things like that. So my encouragement, if there's pastors listening, invest in your youth ministry leaders and know what they're doing, be in the gauntlet with them, because that's what helps produce longevity, I think.
I grew up ELCA Lutheran my whole life. My mom had us bring kids at church every single Sunday, in the children's choir, Sunday school, all the things, right? I ended up going to Camp Luther, which is part of Lutheran Outdoor Ministries of Ohio, now Hopewood Outdoors. And so that was a really integral part of my life too. And then ended up being a camp counselor at Camp Luther for a few summers, and then went to Capital University, a Lutheran college. I mean, like, Lutheran is in my blood, right? But I have to say, I never thought I'd work in a church. That was not I just never thought I would. But ended up teaching in Reynoldsburg City Schools and was a third grade teacher, and then did some more admin kind of things. But we were members at Peace. My husband and I got married there, and kind of sort of involved, not crazy involved there, but, involved. And so then we had our two kids, and I decided to go to part-time and then to stay home with them. And the children's ministry leader at the time said, we're looking for someone just for like 5 hours a week. And I was like, oh, yeah, like I could do 5 hours. I mean, we literally used to meet in the nursery at the table while my boys would play, because they were so little. And every year it's grown. So then the next year was 7 hours, then it was 11, then it was 20, then it was, and now I've been full time for 8 or 9 of those. And so it just kind of shifted and grown. And so I always tell people at the end of the day, I mean, I love kids and I love families and I love working with parents. And so I get to do all that, and I get to be creative and come up with things and the planning. Like, I get to do all of those things in a church setting where I also get to teach them about God and their, how much God loves them, which has been instilled in me my whole life. And so it is the best of both worlds for me. And so I don't have to deal with all the public school stuff, right? I still get to teach and do all the fun things, and teach them about God, which is pretty amazing. And so now I look back and I'm like, oh, okay, God, this was part of the plan, wasn't it? Like, okay, I see what you did here, because never would I have thought. I mean, I was an early childhood education major, at first a music ed major, and I thought, oh, I'll never work in a church. And now here I am. And so, yeah, it's been a really nice journey.
For me, I started school thinking I was going to do social work and work with kids from tough backgrounds. And I got to, in high school, volunteer a little bit at a residential facility, and kind of do some things there. And I thought, yeah, I want to work with kids with tough backgrounds, do social work. And so I started taking the classes and realizing that, man, they're in tough situations. They've been let down by so many people. I want to introduce them to somebody who will never let them down. And so that's kind of where I made the switch to youth ministry of I can introduce them to God, who will never let them down, who will always be there for them, unlike me, in both regards. I'll let people down. I can't always be there. Goes back to the boundaries, right? I can't always be there. And so that's kind of how I got into youth ministry.
I think all of us around the table have kids that are also involved, our own kids who are also involved in ministries. And I know for me, one of the things that has kept me there is that the leadership at my church has been supportive of me as a parent to bring my kids to work, or them need to be in the office while I am in the office. And there hasn't been this push that they have to not be present. And that sort of support as a parent to raise my kids and to have the flexibility to be both Allie, Children's Youth and Family Ministry Director, and also Allie, the mom, is just, wow, what a gift and what an opportunity. And the relationships that my kids have built has been so incredible and special as part of ministry and life.
Absolutely.
The church being the church, like
Yes.
us as well. And that's,
Yes.
yeah, my daughter came to staff meetings with me for the first year and a half, 2 years, until she was starting going preschool stuff, because it was daddy daycare. So you were coming to church with me. We had a play place set up in the office. So
Will I work weekends and evenings, and sometimes it's always the summer, sometimes overnight for weeks at a time? Yes, but will I also be able to be a good mom all the time too? Yeah, that's important.
And I think that's part of so many people's stories. I mean, all four of us, none of us went to college thinking that we would be doing this, right? We all started in different things.
Not just right out.
We all started off thinking, oh, this is never going to be our path. And look at kind of how God has worked in these mysterious ways and has all led us to this room today, It's pretty awesome.
Oh, wow. You've covered a lot in the last few minutes. And we thank you and appreciate your time. Folks who listen to this, I think you're going to get a greater understanding of what Children's Youth and Ministry is all about today, how it's changed, the ups, the downs, the things that go on behind the scenes, what's life-giving and life-sapping. And pastors who listen to this will think a bit about how they go about youth ministry in their congregations and possibly figuring out ways to do more. And so I think this will be far-reaching. So we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
This is Bishop Suzanne Darcy Dillahunt, and I want to thank you again for joining us for this podcast episode. I want to give a special thank you to everyone who joined us for this episode, sharing their realities, passion, and hope for youth ministry. Ms. Allie Adams, Epiphany Lutheran Church, Pickerington. Ms. Greta Clouse, Peace Lutheran Church, Gahanna. Miss Amelia Shrum, Peace Lutheran Church, Gahanna. Mr. Greg Osborne, St. Luke's Lutheran Church, Columbus. Youth ministry is about relationship and connection throughout the entire congregation. It is not just ministry with children and youth. It is a ministry of the whole congregation as we care for, nurture, and guide children and youth as they grow in their faith. It is one of the ways we live out our baptismal promises as we share our faith with one another. If you have questions about anything related to youth ministry, please contact Mr. Gary Pecuch, our youth ministry coach. He can help you get connected with our Synod youth ministry clusters, with youth ministry events within our Synod and across the ELCA. Join continuing education events for youth leaders and high school students, and help with developing safeguarding processes for your congregation. His email address is gpecuch@southernohiosynod.org. Make sure to subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform so you can catch our next episode. Until the next time we gather on this podcast, remember that we are stronger and better together, proclaiming Jesus and joining him in the restoration of the world. Anchored in grace and scripture, we live boldly to share faith, embody generosity, and respond to God's love in all we do.